Thanks for making it Jamaica Magazine. On today's pages, we're talking victim support for children and putting an end to child labour. I'm Adrian Atkinson, bringing you that and more informative content. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
My name is Venice Blackstock Murray. I am an Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. We are extremely grateful to the EU for the contribution it has made to the justice system. We have benefited from the implementation of audiovisual technology within the courts, which allows us to take evidence from witnesses who will not be able to attend court personally. We know that the collaboration with the EU and the Ministry of Justice will help Jamaica to obtain a first-class justice system.
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez, and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, July 27. Tighter curfew measures and gathering limits have been put in place for the next 2 weeks until August 10. The revised measures were announced by Prime Minister Andrew Holness during a virtual press briefing last evening. Effective today, the 11 p.m. curfew start time no longer exists. The new hours are 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Monday to Saturday and from 3 p.m. to 5 a.m. on Sundays. As it relates to public holidays, the hours will be from 3 p.m. to 5 a.m. and apply to Emancipation and Independence Days on August 2 and 6. Beaches and rivers will now open from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mondays to Saturdays and 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sundays and public holidays. The gathering limit for events has been reduced from 70 to 50% of the usable square footage at the facility. This includes churches, gyms, restaurants, and bars, among others. Small events are also allowed at 50% capacity or no more than 100 persons in total, using whichever is lower in terms of the venue capacity. That includes organizers and support personnel.
Over the course of the next 2 weeks, we will continue to monitor the situation and determine the measures that will apply effective August 11. Our focus in crafting those measures will be on trying to control spread sufficiently to allow us to reopen schools to facilitate structured face-to-face learning in September. That is an imperative for the government and indeed for all the parents and children who have had a really very difficult time during this pandemic.
As at July 26, the country's overall COVID-19 cases stand at 52,141, with 3,713 active cases. Meanwhile, Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton says the geographic spread of COVID-19 is increasing, with new cases being reported in more communities across the country.
On July 25th, some 306 or 39.6% of 783 communities as defined by Statin had COVID-19 cases with the dates of onset in the last 2 weeks. This is up from 29% 2 weeks ago.
Minister Tufton says hospitalizations are also on the rise, moving from a daily intake of 215 to 298 over the last 7 days. General occupancy is showing 7 hospitals to be in the red alert zone, where 84% of their bed capacity is being used. 4 hospitals are in the amber alert zone, with greater than 74% of beds being occupied. According to the health minister, more beds are being made available through the activation of field hospitals at Spanish Town, Falmouth, and St. Joseph's hospitals.
2 other 40-bed facilities are to become available. These will add 184 beds to the existing 716 beds. So we are preparing should we require additional capacity.
On the matter of COVID-19 vaccination, the health minister says 1.4 million doses are expected to arrive on the island between now and September. The breakdown includes single doses from Johnson & Johnson and double doses of the Pfizer and AstraZeneca brand. The earliest shipment of 168,000 doses is expected within the next week and a half. Through the overall shipment, Dr. Tufton says the Health Ministry expects to vaccinate approximately 900,000 Jamaicans by the end of September.
It's an ambitious target, but I believe with the support of the population and all of society, we can achieve that target. And if we set our minds to it, and we make the effort, and we get Jamaicans of all ages who qualify, so 18 years and over, starting when the first shipment arrives, we will open up to all who qualify.
The health minister says the increased vaccination will put Jamaica in the realm of other countries that have managed to vaccinate as much as or more than 50% of their target groups. Jamaica's vaccination implementation program is focusing on 65% of the population in order to protect persons against serious illness and death associated with the coronavirus disease. As of July 25, 302,856 doses of vaccine have been administered to the population. In other news, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the JCF, says it will be going after parents and guardians involved in the trafficking of their children. The JCF says based on evidence, most local cases of human trafficking involve sexual exploitation, and although it's not the only type, it supersedes the numbers, making it a primary issue in Jamaica. Detective Inspector Kamisha Gordon says even more troubling is the trend regarding children who report to have been trafficked since the start of the year. She's the sub-officer in charge of the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Vice Squad within the Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Branch, CTOC.
Last year, there were 8 victims identified within Jamaica. And worthy of note is that these 8 victims were all children. This is a troubling trend. Since the start of 2021, we have identified 5 victims, all children, all girls. This is a troubling trend. Another trend that we are seeing, it's developing, is that women who are supposed to be the parents of or the guardians of these children are the ones who are seemingly seeking to exploit them.
Detective Inspector Gordon was speaking recently at a JIS think tank. She revealed that a mother was arrested and charged last year for exploitation of her daughter. At the same time, the Ministry of National Security is hosting sensitization sessions and media interviews this week to encourage greater public knowledge about human trafficking. The activities will conclude with a virtual town hall meeting on World Day Against Trafficking in Persons on July 30. The event will be streamed from 3 to 5 p.m. on the ministry's social media platforms.
The nature of human trafficking is that it continues to evolve, and it is not something that is easily, the concept of it is not easily grasped. But the basic knowledge of human trafficking, persons tend to believe that certain activities are acceptable. And because of this, they do not report. Persons tend to believe that human trafficking must involve transportation. Persons, because they don't know what it is, will not report because they do not identify themselves or a situation as being trafficking.
Among the definition of human trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat, use of force, or other forms of coercion to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. The 3 most common types of human trafficking are sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching.
Coming up, the latest advancements in the office of the Prime Minister.
We as a society must ban corporal punishment. It is important that we give focus to rural communities. The new NIDS is voluntary.
You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Simone Wolfe. In Parliament last Tuesday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness called for an open and honest discussion to bring an end to corporal punishment on the island. The call followed that Monday's death of 4-year-old Nashawn Brown, who was reportedly severely beaten by his stepfather. The stepfather has since been arrested and charged, and a post-mortem is being conducted to determine if additional charges are to be laid. Mr. Holness says he is contemplating bringing legislation to protect children from this form of discipline.
Violence is a disease. It is a sickness. And it is spread by those who believe that it is the quickest and easiest form of conflict resolution. It is spread by those who believe that it gives them power. Jamaica must acknowledge that violence is at crisis level in the society, and we must take the necessary legal measures to end it. We can end this epidemic of violence in Jamaica.
The Joint Select Committee of Parliament, which has been reviewing the National Identification and Registration Bill 2021, more commonly known as NIDS, tabled its report last week Tuesday. The committee's recommendations include protecting individuals' right to privacy and for the oversight body to become an independent commission of Parliament. Prime Minister Andrew Holness thanked the committee members as well as the public for their input, pointing out that more than 100 submissions were received and 30 persons were asked to present their submissions.
The bill incorporates various inputs arising out of the Joint Select Committee process. The committee made several recommendations that have served to shape the legislation into a more widely accepted, fit-for-purpose, and overall better legislation to underpin the governance and oversight of the national identification system.
The Prime Minister was back in Parliament Wednesday, warning that the continued rise in COVID-19 infection and hospitalization rates was forcing the government to review the containment measures. He also stressed that while the Delta variant of the virus has not so far been detected on the island, we must brace for the possibility, as this is now the dominant strain globally.
I want to urge all Jamaicans to exercise extreme caution. This is not the time to become complacent. I want to reinforce the need for everyone to be vigilant about observing the protocols and keeping ourselves and each other safe.
In more positive news, the Prime Minister says the gene sequencing machine to test for the different variants of COVID-19 should be in the island in a few weeks' time. The Andrew Holness-led government will be placing greater focus on rural development. Through the formulation of the Rural Development Strategy, the Prime Minister says areas being targeted include the Rural Electrification Program, the expansion of agricultural roads, improving access to water, and providing internet connectivity.
It is something that the government is aware of, is sensitive to, and is trying its best to provide the resources to address these roads. This is an example of the government's effort, and we are doing roads like this throughout the municipalities.
Mr. Holness made the comments as he opened the $5 million Gall Road in St. Mary. He also used this time in the parish to distribute 40 tablets and a printer to students, courtesy of his Positive Jamaica Foundation.
I want you to use these devices not as toys, not to play games. Yes, children will play games, but I also want you to use it to expand your knowledge, because this is how ultimately we are going to develop our rural communities, when we increase and improve the educational performance of students.
By Friday, the Prime Minister was in Portmore, St. Catherine to open one of 3 buildings by G-Tech Park Portmore Holdings. Building 2 is slated for completion next year, and the third and final structure to complete the complex will be constructed later. The complex is the home of Ibex Business Process Outsourcing Company on the island. As he urged stakeholders to continue investing in Jamaica, Mr. Holness lauded the industry for its continued growth despite the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
As of June 30th, 2021, the industry employed an estimated 44,000 persons, compared with 38,400 in June last year. So we have grown. This is an increase of approximately 15% year over year, while the economy as a whole suffered its worst decline both in terms of job loss and growth in decades.
The Prime Minister also spoke of consultations that are now on to consider making Portmore the island's 15th parish.
We actually now need to improve the prospects of Portmore by making it a parish, increasing its level of governance and administration to be more in keeping with the self-expression of the people of Portmore.
Earlier in the week, the Prime Minister welcomed several guests to Jamaica House. He held talks with representatives from the World Bank. Mr. Holness also met with the finalists for the Nurse and Nursing Student of the Year, and he closed out his courtesy calls with businessman Gary Butch Hendrickson. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Our little ones are as delicate as flowers, and this means they need to be protected, nurtured, and given the opportunity to bloom into greatness. The Victim Services Division is providing support to ensure the well-being of children and the wider population. Let's see how the division is using an animation app to do just that.
Children sometimes see too much. At other times, they hear too much. And many of them feel too much. There are situations where children become victims of crimes, seeing, hearing, and feeling too much of its effect. The hurt and trauma can linger without the proper intervention strategies. This is where government's Victim Services Division comes in. The VSD is having a far-reaching and sweeping impact as it provides help to this vulnerable group.
The Victim Services Division is that division within the Ministry of Justice, which is responsible for coordinating the ministry's support base for victims of crime. Anyone can become a victim of a crime. Victims of crime are often persons who suffer just about any crime you imagine. There are sexual crimes, small children, there is robbery, there is murder, wherein the primary victim, though, has deceased. The secondary victim, which is the family members, are there for the support that we give. We recognize that our victim population was getting younger. Whilst we still would have to communicate with them some of the complex concepts that are a part of the therapeutic process. Hence, we needed to find a medium that will allow for us to use their type of language, colors and sounds and movement.
Well, that medium the ministry found was the use of an animation bundle. It is comprised of 8 short films that offer therapeutic intervention and lessons to children who are victims of crime.
Your daughter was almost abducted today, but she was smart. She ran away. However, there is more she could have done. Walking with headphones on is a dangerous habit. You must be alert. Pay attention to your surroundings and the dangers around you.
Our animation strategy involves the creation of a character called Justy. And Justy represents all that is good and right about what should be done when a child is faced with a difficulty. A child seeing the animation immediately will be able to interact. They are short animation films, so the attention span of the child is not hampered in any way. And our intent is not just for them to watch Justy, but to become and to embody the teachings, the values of Justy in order to help other children.
I have not left the house in over 3 weeks. I came here to work as a helper, and now he tells me that I'm going to work at a nightclub.
Put these on and get ready. We're leaving for the nightclub in half an hour.
Anyone can be trafficked. It does not matter your age, gender, or race.
We also ensure that we would have elected to choose specific topics which were current and will remain current. Abduction is a reality. The matter of being bullied is a reality. Human trafficked is another reality, and among others. There are 8 animation films. And these are current, we have seen over time. We have had the opportunity to have children literally vet the animations, and we are very comfortable that they have the content that will reflect concerns that children would want to share with their friends.
But why was the Victim Services Division so sure that these animated videos would have or will even continue to pull the required effect?
The process of developing an intervention involves doing an assessment. We would have had the benefit of, over the last 20 years, 200,000 victims that we would have been able to assess. We would have had clear understanding of what needs to be done to provide support for the victims of crime, hence the program VSD. What we did was to use that 20 years of experience. We have a cadre of trained social workers, psychologists, various levels of competencies to work with children. And we have just managed to package this entire expertise into 8 animations. I am absolutely confident that they have what it takes to make a difference.
So even in all the challenges, the Victim Services Division is working to provide psychosocial support for victims of crime. The division is committing its unit to the advancement of victim rights, including those of our children. And your role can be as simple as speaking up.
As we continue to turn the pages of the magazine, let us work together to put an end to child labor.
The culture of Jamaica is such that our parents would have instilled in us the value of work. And there is nothing wrong with parents ensuring that children understand the value of work. But when that crosses the line to getting our children engaged in illegal activities, such as scamming, when that crosses the line to get our children engaged in illegal activities such as becoming involved in the illegal sex trade and human trafficking, when that crosses the line such that being involved in work deprives the child of the opportunity of education, then that is not the kind of child labor that any country can be proud of. Many of our parents continue to take children out of school to help them in the markets on a Thursday and on a Friday. I can well understand and appreciate the need for the support of the household so that you can go to school on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But parents, you have to desist from doing that. The government has provided the resources necessary to ensure that children can remain in school for the full 5 days per week. And I encourage all parents, no matter how you are struggling, to take advantage of the support that the government gives through the PATH program and other means. There is no excuse for parents to take their children out of school to support them in any form of economic activity.
As humans, we have a responsibility to protect all living things in our environment. You might not be directly aware, but certain species of animals play an important role, not only in their survival, but ours too. Find out more in this, our next feature.
Bow your ears for a bit. Hear the trees wailing or the leaves grabbing your unwanted carbon dioxide, insects making a shrilling sound, and the tuneful noise of some unnamed and rarely seen creature reverberating within the bushes. Now open your eyes a bit wider. Watch ants band together in groups of hundreds, or wasps gathering wood shavings to build their next home, and birds preparing some sweet meal for your liking. All these make up the wildlife, those organisms that grow or live wild in any area.
Wildlife conservation is an attempt to preserve either a species or a population of a particular species, and by doing so, you in effect are also preserving its habitat because the species doesn't exist on its own. And there are different types of conservation. You have what they call in situ conservation, which is conservation within its natural habitat, and that is usually the aim of all most, if not all, conservation efforts. And you have ex situ conservation, where you're trying to preserve the animals in a not so natural state, for example, in a zoo or in a controlled park area. And again, the goal is usually when their natural habitat is improved or protected in some way, then they try to repatriate those species back into their natural habitat.
And preserving the wildlife should be an important part of the human agenda. Here's why. It promotes the continuation of native plant species. Small animals like bees, butterflies, and our very own doctor-bird play an important role in food production. Conserving these animals, protecting these animals, means that we are ultimately helping in pollination. It increases medicinal value. Plants are a major source of medication, but so too are animals. Take, for example, how research shows that the venom from the cobra can be used as an ingredient in making the medications for leprosy, or how lobsters can be used as antifungals. It's a way to preserve our heritage. Some plants and animals are unique to specific countries, so conserving those wildlife means conserving those traditional aspects of our culture. Things like the blue maho plant or the yellow pui tree of Jamaica, and even the lions and leopards of Africa. It enhances food security by protecting natural habitats from degradation and forests against deforestation. The availability of a variety of food products increases.
Everyone needs to play a part. We have to understand that preserving the wildlife, it's not necessarily just for how it can benefit us, but we're also looking at the future generations. And so each person needs to be a little bit more responsible in what they're doing, where they dispose of garbage, cutting off areas and so forth. Understand the law, the Wildlife Protection Act, for example. One basic feature of it is that all native birds are protected. Don't catch the birds, We have hunting season, that is something that is actually regulated. But besides that, we try to encourage persons not to take matters into their own hands at times. Sometimes we have some species that we're trying to protect that are inherently can be a dangerous species, like a crocodile, for example. We encourage persons not to go out and try to catch those animals, but to call NEPA.
Here's your chance to do your part to conserve the wildlife.
And that's it for today's show. Be sure to join us again tomorrow at the same place, same time. We look forward to providing you with more informative content. To stay in the loop, subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website at jis.gov.jm. Until next time, continue to play your part in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.